So,
all right.
Right. So we're talking about story number 1, which is
Right.
called Struck by Lightning, which is also the title of the book of short stories that I wrote in 2007 and published. All the episodes can be caught up on. You can catch up watching them on the website. And I will post the link. It's sidwebsterbeecham.com. But I will share the link on my Twitter feed and everywhere else. Today we launched the first episode of the second story is what I meant to say. And it's called Signs for the Blind. But we're going to talk about Struck by Lightning because we have completed all 18 episodes. Yay! Woo!
Yay! Excellent.
And we've had over 500 views. So that's also, pretty good.
Right. And we got, I think, 24. How many subscribers? Let me see.
Yeah, 24 subscribers. So now, if we have over 500 views, almost 600 views, I would hope that some of you will go ahead and subscribe and make sure you click like. That seems to be like the biggest challenge. So, it costs you nothing. Just click like and subscribe, man. We would love it if you would do that for us. Okay. So now we had started having a discussion yesterday about the final, the ending. Hopefully you've all seen it. So there'll be some spoilers in the discussion. And I was curious as to know whether people thought it was an expected end. So I'll just leave it at that, just in case some of you haven't seen it. I won't say what that ending was. Because, it starts off with a lot of turmoil. And I was pretty surprised to hear from some men. I was hoping to get more comments from men, but the ones that did comment, I was really surprised that some men felt Greg should have just moved on to find another woman in the situation instead of Greg fixing himself, or the men in their environment trying to encourage Greg to do better. So that was surprising to me.
Yeah, that's very surprising. Even when he went to the church, and the deacons were helping him, it doesn't seem like they were really trying to counsel him at all.
And he's not a good listener anyway, as we come to find out in the story. But then that's a problem. You know what I'm saying? So if you look deeper than just trying to put a Band-Aid on a situation, that might have helped Greg, because Greg was so stuck on surviving and being, in a selfish way, so that he just could not, get out of his own way, and he was taking prisoners in his wake. Although Sheila allowed it, but he couldn't get out of his own way for trying to survive. And his life was surrounded by enablers. I think some of them had very good intentions, but it wasn't really helping him.
Right.
So,
and also, even though he was on survival mode, he didn't care. Like you said, it was all about him. He didn't care who he hurt, who he took from, because he ended up, in some of his survival situations, taken away from the family, with bringing up phone bills that took away from their basic bills of just keeping shelter, food, clothing, shelter. Like, he didn't think that certain individual moves he made needed to be discussed, because they were collectively affected, as we're end up affecting them being able to pay rent.
Right. And, he did have a survivalist instinct, because once his mother had enough of him, he had enough sense to, he had a girlfriend, and so he had enough sense to sad to say it, but he was like, okay, my next move, I better go ahead and ask her to marry me because, instead of him being in that frame of mind anyway, like I just have to wonder why he hadn't considered getting married to begin with and just stepping up to the plate. Like, is it because he was afraid of the responsibility of it? Like, why did it have to come down to a survival thing to move him towards marriage? For that to even kick in.
Right. And the marriage, and then Sheila, on Sheila's side, Sheila, ultimately just wanted to say she was married. She didn't,
Which is a problem. Because women, feeling desperate, and that could be for so many reasons. So you got family up here asking, especially after you get a certain age, why ain't you married? Is something wrong with you? That's a problem. Mm-hmm. It causes, low self-esteem. That desperation and everything is terrible.
And she didn't care either. So her desperation, her just saying she wanted to be married, she obviously didn't care at what detriment that was going to cost her and her living situation.
Exactly. Right. Yep.
So that was...
Yeah.
That wasn't right, especially when you got children involved.
Yep. Yeah. And that's...
And then they want to blame each other.
Right. So she's holding it down. She had been holding it down for herself. And now she's taking on a husband who was looking to survive. And how in the world did she think that was going to work out for her? You know what I mean? But a lot of women, here we go. I'm going to, once I show him how much I can help him get his life together, he's going to want to, get his life together, and he's going to do the right thing. And we know that does not work.
Right. Greg obviously was not trying to improve himself at all. He said, take me as I am, period.
To Darnell's point, you know what I'm saying? She knew how he was when she took him in. So that just says, for a lot of women, so how about the men who do take advantage of a woman's great, taking him in and helping him better himself? I mean, it does work out that way. So are we saying women don't take no man in unless he got his act together, period? And because you can't help a man that way. Is that what we're saying?
Right. Because it seemed like, and when we had the discussion last night, because I said, well, when we were talking with the men, and Darnell said, well, I'm putting out resources, and I said, well, do you want a woman, if you go out on a date, you still feel like the woman should be the one paying? No. Okay, but then, which is it? And so then, I like how Maria said, you have to both be, besides the financial part, both people had to be willing. Yeah, they had to be willing to be they both have to want to be in a relationship.
Exactly. And even though everybody has their own reasons, you still got to somehow be on the same page with it too. But they were so far apart in their reasons for coming together to begin with. You just had to, you can hope that, I'm not going to say it couldn't happen, but I think more often than not, it turns out the way it does in the story where, Greg is a pretty extreme example of how dysfunctional it can be.
Both going to continue to be under a stressful situation. She continues to want Greg to change, and Greg continuously determined not to. So they're going to be back and forth stressing each other out till health issues probably kick in at some point. One of them could die.
And the funny thing is, he ends up having goals of being on disability.
Right.
he literally is, you know, wants to be on disability. So now what do you do with that?
He don't.
I mean, yeah. That's just, you know, so is she going to take that on, or is she going to, you know, well,
continue to try to push him.
Right.
And keep and frustrate herself into depression.
And having another baby. How was that a good solution? Is that a good solution for anyone?
Right.
You know?
Especially when you don't have things in order.
Bring a child into a dysfunctional situation like that and think that's going to fix it.
That was Greg's suggestion to keep feeling. And what sense does that make when he's not even helping them financially? Bills, the electricity getting cut off, you getting eviction, and you. I mean, come on, Greg. What is you thinking?
Right.
And so, you know.
And then to hear a man say, when is Greg going to finally get rid of her and move on to another woman? That is puzzling to me. That. You know, because Greg ain't fixed himself, so that in that regard, that means you're hoping he just moves on to find a woman who is going to just literally from the door decide, I'm just going to take care of this dude. But see, my problem with that, even if that, you know, is the case, and there's probably plenty of women that do that. My thing is, he's not just simply someone that you can take care of. This guy brings some destruction with him. He's, you know, running up bills, breaking down cars. He costs money. You know, he's unnecessarily. You know, like, you know, it's disrespectful. You know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So why would you wish that on anybody? I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
He definitely probably could find another desperate woman to take care of him.
Sisters or anything, you wouldn't want your daughter or your sister to be with a man that you know is like that has that track record, right?
Right. Like, why is that good? Like, if we trying to build better community and better families, you know, somebody should say no. Like, this is not a way to just go to the next woman to destroy and wear out until she's broke, busted, and disgusted, and then move on to the next woman. Like, come on now. So you leave a trail of destruction.
That's what I'm saying.
Broken women. You end up leaving a trail of destruction and broken women to add on to a community of destruction. You know, like, we're not gonna, as a community, improve if we allowing, you know, this type of behavior.
Right.
Continue. You know, what else struck me in the conversation we had last night was when I made the comment, happy wife, happy life. And we had the single man and the two married men in the discussion. It was very interesting to see how the older married men
agreed with that and was not.
And the younger single man didn't. He felt, you know, what was the comment he made?
Well, it was not just the younger single man. There was another guy there too that kind of took that the wrong way, in my opinion. So you had the two married men that felt that
versus the two single men.
They weren't upset with that comment at all, and like, you know, and how it takes two to make things work and this and that. Whereas the two single men they took it like it was such a burdensome thing to say. Like, I'm trying to make her happy in order for me to be happy. And I'm like, boy, is that the attitude to have?
Yeah, because what's the alternative? You don't want to make your wife happy?
And does it mean that she's not making you happy? Like, why was that comment? No. I don't understand why that would be a burdensome comment.
Right, and then like when Maria jumped in, she said, "Well, if you feel like it's a burden to make your partner or your spouse happy, then that ain't the person for you. It shouldn't be a burden for you to make your spouse or your partner happy. If it's a burden, then that ain't the right relationship."
Exactly. You know, I totally agree. You know,
so Greg and Sheila are not, you know, really not compatible. No. Well, except that Greg is not, you know, Greg is happy as long as his needs are being taken care of.
Right. But like I said, you know, I believe she would have been okay with him if he was at least, even if he wasn't contributing, a 0 is better than a negative. You know what I'm saying? So if he's not contributing, you know, he contribute other ways where, you know, maybe he just, you know, clean up the house or take care of the kids or, you know, something. But this guy was literally costing her money. You know, she tried to give him a cell phone. He ran up the bill. You know, she tried to, you know, let him use the car to find a job. He burns up her gas. You know, car breaks down. He can't fix it. You know, just everything. You know, not helping at all.
Right. And the stress on Sheila, like how long do you think she could keep
that up?
Keep exactly. You know, before he broke down and like you said, Darnell said he probably will end up moving on to the next woman once she's not able to handle that type of abuse and destruction she's allowing herself to be, you know, to be a victim to.
I agree.
You can't hold that stuff up forever. I've seen, you know.
Yes.
You know, unfortunate people in those type of relationships, and one of them end up getting sick. You know, the health issues end up kicking in when
that happens.
Certain age.
Exactly.
By allowing yourself to be subjected to that type of dysfunction.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
The first story was deep, man. You know, hopefully.
Story number 1.
This next one.
Development. Yeah. The first story was deep. And all the episodes were really, you know, laying it out. And I agree. Yep.
The hashtag that I started adding to, the trauma bonding. I mean, you say, oh, I thought that was interesting. But both of them do come, I mean, they both are experiencing, well, Greg comes from a trauma childhood, you know, fatherless home. But they both are trauma bonding.
Right.
In my opinion.
You're right. Yep. And both to me seem to suffer from some form of depression or something.
Yeah.
You know.
Definitely low self-esteem.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
so that's a recipe for disaster in itself.
Yeah.
You know, but it's a sad story, a cautionary tale. And, you know, in the end, I don't know. To me, the ending is pretty sad too. I don't think that's a happy ending at all. But you know, hey, all stories don't have happy endings. And in reality, you know, there's not always happy endings, and you know. It's
so let's see.
Just the way it is, you know. So, but yeah, I think this was a good first launch of our podcast, or first story out. Signs for the Blind is going to be so interesting, guys. I hope folks will tune in. But yeah, do we have any other comments, Carla, before we sign off?
No, just hope that those who haven't listened to the episodes for the first story, go back, listen, please comment, like, subscribe, and share so that we can continue growing the book story video podcast. Yep. So that's
all right.
it.
Well, thank you everyone for your support. Signing off. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.